Ready, yeah. Here it is. Okay.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order at 7:01 PM. And at this time, we'll also suspend the procedural bylaw. Do I need to vote on that?
Yeah.
So then I have a mover and a seconder. Okay, Councilor Morton and second, right? And just we're calling the meeting to order and suspending the procedural bylaws for the meeting. On favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Here you get Robert out here, so you can.
Just about. Just about.
Oh, just about here.
There you go.
And that one's unanimous if you need.
No.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda for this evening. Mover and a seconder, please.
I move.
Dean and seconded, all right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Is carried. So are there any written disclosures on pecuniary interest?
None.
Right. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. These are the minutes from April the 25th that were in the agenda package. I need a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move, but I got a point.
Okay, and seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on the previous minutes?
On 8.1.3A on the second paragraph. We resolved that a working group be composed, and it's just a missing word, that's all. 8.1.3A, the second paragraph.
1.3A.
Yeah,
The working group
now,
composed of a
a
minimum.
working, it should say working group, not a working,
Oh, I see. Okay,
Just
working group.
shows it actually did read it.
Let's keep going. Any other discussion? No?
No.
All right, call that to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's carried. So the next item on the agenda is, I get my mouse to work here. There we go. Business arise from previous meetings. So we have the renewal of the dog pound agreement, and that is deferred until we have further information. Review of remuneration bylaw and report on a detailed report to the treasurer on inconsistencies, and that is deferred. We're still awaiting a report from Leanne. And establish a working group for the review of the code of conduct complaint process, schedule a date. So we have to schedule a date.
Yeah, I'm requesting, Mr. Mayor, that council, the group, and I forget who was part of that group, if we could potentially try to schedule a date, so we have that set and.
That was Dean, Grant,
Robert.
John, Robert, and yourself, I believe.
Yeah, and myself, yeah. Any preference on times, dates, gentlemen?
I'm usually free by default in the after 3. But I can certainly schedule it in.
Robert probably have the.
Robert, you're on that committee, correct?
I am. Fridays usually work for me, and most evenings I maybe see what lines, if anyone else is interested in an evening meeting or after 6 type of meeting. Or
Do the
Friday.
Question, would these meetings be accessible electronically or not?
Yeah, well, they're typically open to the public, so if the procedural bylaw, which we are sort of working on, states that all meetings are open, are to be recorded, or then they, yes. Otherwise, then it would be just open to council, open to committee, but
Sure, I mean, I'd love to be in person as well, but I do have a few conflicting dates, so we'll have to then I might only be available by electronic. That's just why I asked. But in the next 10 days, I don't know how soon we're gonna do this, but I'm pretty open in an evening.
Thursday evening? How's that work?
Thursday?
Thursday next week is the day before the long weekend, but I'm available.
18th,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
you available that day in person, yes.
Thursday, the 18th. Does that work for
7
John,
p.m.
Bill?
All right,
7 p.m.
now it's open to the public, so
There's gonna be an agenda submitted.
somebody would be here and some people might be electronic.
That's right.
At this point, I'm in person, so,
You're in person?
yeah, I think we're all in person at this point, so.
Me as well.
All right, so then you're all in person, so it'd be open. to the
At this
public.
point, yeah.
So Riel, can we submit some documents before that for review, or that'll have to happen at the meeting?
No, the intent is to have some information out prior to the meeting. And I'll follow the typical, regular council meeting, timeframes for that.
Okay.
Perfect. So are we good to move on?
Yep.
All right, so moving on, the next item is item 5.3, or sorry, 5.4, which is Lake Talon Dock Condition Meeting update, which is something that I'll be talking about just briefly. We had a meeting in Bonfield. And Don Paquette was there and Doug LaPlante was there, as well as numerous other people at this meeting. For those who aren't familiar, this is just a preliminary report. This is nothing that will be actionable tonight, but I'm just going to give you an idea of what we're looking at. There is a dock at the end of Talon Lake Road, which leads out into Talon Lake. And that particular dock is the only access to Talon Lake that's a public access. So if that were to go away, then there would be no public access to Talon Lake for the population. Initially, I thought that all we were talking about at that meeting is the dock itself and replacing it. And of course, everyone here is familiar with the dock that's at Smith Lake that the township maintains. We take it out of the water, put back into the water. But unfortunately, the project seems to be a little bit bigger than just fixing the dock. By the way, if you go and visit, the dock is sitting on an angle and it's partially underwater and it's pretty unsightly. That particular property is on the border between Bonfield and Calvin Township. So the part that is in Calvin Township is actually part of the Mattawa River Provincial Park. So there's a Mattawa Provincial Park along the border on the top part of Calvin, and that dock is perched right in the middle. If we were just talking about fixing the dock, I'm sure that would be a small project, but Don Paquette and others have prepared a couple of studies. They're very extensive. There is a work plan. And that work plan, it involves an environmental impact study, which will exceed $100,000. And then a second part to that environmental impact study will be another $50,000. Why that's needed is they want to remove the silt from the dock area. And the silt that's in the bay is coming from a river called Sharps Creek. because it has been somewhat mismanaged. So they want to do some work on the creek, then on the bay. And all of that requires an environmental impact study. On top of that, there is an issue with the water levels in Talon Lake. There's a dam at both ends, and these two dams sometimes change the water levels so that if you went to launch a boat into the water, you're launching it into the mud because the water levels are so low that you can't get your trailer in. The last part of the whole puzzle is that there is no public land other than the road allowance between the two townships leading up to this dock. So if residents of Calvin wanted to go and use that dock on Saturday, they would have to get there mighty early in the morning because by 9 o'clock in the morning, there would be boats and trailers parked all the way up and down the road, so they wouldn't be able to access. So there needs to be parking. So this is a big, big project. And of course, they're not asking that Calvin Township come up with the $150,000. They're looking at getting government funding. But in order to do that, there has to be an organization established. It's going to be responsible for this dock. It's going to be responsible for the maintenance, responsible for the dredging. And there are some insurance implications that are quite big. So there will be a report coming from the two people that I just mentioned on what we're going to present to council as to what kind of a decision council wishes to reach. And so this is just a preliminary report so that you understand what the issue is in this particular area. But it is a big project. It'll be maybe the next meeting, maybe the meeting after that. And then at that point, it's open for discussion and a possible decision. So that is the end of my report. Are there any questions or discussion? Questions? Questions? No? All right, moving on. The land surplus bylaw and review and report due June the 13th. Can you fill us in on that a little bit?
No, I can't, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. That was from actions from last meeting, and that was what was mentioned that we were going to review and have it to you for consideration at the
June meeting. That's that one piece of land that's up for sale, is that?
I can't say that for sure. I don't know that.
142, Hamlin Lake.
Lake Road.
Is that the one? Yeah.
Okay, so that's deferred until.
Yeah.
Okay. So delegations, item 6.
We just need to pass a resolution for that, Mr. Mayor, for item 5.
Oh, for item 5,
Yeah, so I'll read the resolution.
please.
That council received the business information arising from the previous meeting. For that, council scheduled a code of conduct meeting, committee meeting for May 18th at 7 p.m. Sorry.
All right. So we need a mover and a seconder. Mover and a seconder.
I'll move.
Okay, Councillor Grant and Councillor Morton seconded. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
All right.
So delegations, next item on the agenda, we have none this meeting. Legislative matters, the consent agenda. We have no consent agenda
No.
for this meeting.
No, not for this.
Bylaws. So we have bylaw 721, which is item 721 on the agenda, bylaw 2023-021 to establish a workplace violence and harassment policy. I need a mover and a seconder.
Mr. Mayor, I'll read the bylaw.
Okay, but shouldn't I get a mover and a seconder for you first?
No, I will read the letter of the resolution to be read.
All right, go ahead.
That council perform first and second reading for bylaw 2023-21, which is establish of workplace violence and harassment policy, and bylaw 2023-22, the confirmatory bylaw. Mover and a seconder for that.
Mover and a seconder for these two bylaws?
I'll move.
All right, well,
I'll second.
you'll second? This is the first and second reading of these bylaws, correct?
That's correct. Third and final's coming.
So are you going to read them or?
No, we don't read them in detail. We don't read the whole bylaw.
All right. So we're calling a vote?
Yeah.
On those two, and
What was that discussion?
The discussion is afterwards.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
because we're gonna go to a third reading.
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
so all in favor? Aye. All right.
Now I do the third and final reading.
All right,
That council performed third and final reading for bylaw 2023-21, establish of workplace violence and harassment policy. If you want to discuss before moving.
all right, so you've all seen the workplace harassment bylaw. Is there any discussion? All right,
In the past, the labor board had an issue with the one that we had. And I just wondered if they've put their stamp of approval on this one.
They did.
Thank you very much.
We went through 2 iterations with them to make sure that it was compliant and we got full compliance with them.
Very good, thank you.
anyone else have any discussion, questions?
I just want to say, I think it's written in plain English and hope it's going to be a relative plain English, I suppose. I hope it's going to be effective to meet our needs and happy with it.
All right, any other discussion? Council Latimer?
It's pretty standard fare and generic. It touches all the pertinent points. I think it's good.
All right. So I'd like to call this to a vote. All those in favor?
Mover and seconder first.
Oh, sorry, because it's the second reading. Just so everybody in the audience is understanding, we've changed the procedure of how we're doing things, going back to a first, second, and third reading as was done earlier. So it's a little bit of a new process for everyone here tonight. So,
It's all good.
all right. So I need a mover and a seconder for the establishment of a workplace and harassment policy. All right, Councilor Morton,
I'll second.
Councilor Latimer. So all those in favor of passing the bylaw for the workplace and violence and harassment policy, third reading,
All right.
carried.
Sir?
So now we're going to do the confirmation bylaw.
No, that's at the end, just
So we can just leave that till the end.
Sir?
So administrative matters, the 8.1 is the fire chief recruitment update.
Mhm.
That is
That's for me.
for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief update for council and the public. So as we received, so that was posted on April 17th and closed on April 30th. 2 interested candidates had submitted their credentials for review. In the next few weeks, we'll be reviewing the qualifications and with anticipation of a recommendation for the next regular council meeting. So nothing at this time, just information for everybody.
All right.
So the motion is to receive the fire chief recruitment update.
So I need a mover and a seconder to accept the motion to. Okay, Councilor Morton and Councilor Manson as seconder. Any discussion on the fire chief recruitment update? No discussion?
Nope.
All right. I'll let to a vote. All those in favor?
All right.
That is carried. So now we're talking about the procedural bylaws review, and again, that goes back to our CAO.
Thank you, sir. So just to give a little bit of history, so bylaw 2022-62 was established to govern the proceedings of council, which was adopted in 2022 as the interim bylaw to be reviewed in May of 2023, as per the instructions of the bylaw. In consideration of this timeframe, staff begun the process of creating a draft. One immediate consideration for council was whether to have 2 meetings per month or to have 1 meeting per month of the regular council meetings. With a streamlined agenda, council would find that 2 meetings a month may be excessive. One of the things that is a very common practice in other municipalities and perhaps here in the past as well, is that if there's any other topics that are needed or that should have more discussion on, other than in a typical information, you could hold a committee of the whole meeting where, and that's open to the public and it just, but there's actual discussion in detail that happens there, but there's no formal resolution that's passed. That agenda goes to the regular council meeting for the approval afterwards, and that's where that, if there's any action, it would get passed at the regular council meeting. That all said, I think for this size of municipality, and considering the considering trying to attempt to streamline some of the processes, I think in my opinion, one council meeting is sufficient. Again, like I said, you have always the option of calling others if and when needed. That would bring you to 12 regular council meetings. And then obviously you have your regular committee meetings that I have yet to see the schedule or understand them yet, but I will in the next few weeks likely. But that would also be a part of your total part of your meeting content or your total meeting requirements for the council. So it's something to consider. It's certainly not required, but it's something that as we look at the procedural bylaw, we would work around that change if needed and have any recommended changes in the procedural bylaw with that in mind. Something to consider.
Can we open this up for discussion?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so then let's open this up.
Was there a second or I can't remember?
Do we need a mover in a second?
Not for this one.
No. All right, may I start? I can see that there would be a little bit of consternation because a lot of people are going to figure, oh, well, there's only going to be 1 meeting a month. But I understand that, and correct me if I'm wrong, our procedural bylaw did not allow for meeting of the whole. It's not part of the old procedural bylaw. So that's something that we'd have to in the procedural bylaw. Correct.
Yeah, well, that's why we're having this discussion is to, if we're going to insert it into the procedural bylaw as part of all your committees, make sure that it's in there and work.
So do I understand correctly? What you would do is on the second Thursday of a month, have a meeting of the whole where the public could participate in those discussions. There would be no resolutions passed in that meeting of the whole. They would regular council meeting. So you'd still wind up with 2 meetings in that month, but just not a regular time. Sort of how I understand?
Well, you don't have to have that second meeting, only when required.
Okay.
So if something heavy on the agenda or a topic that needs more analysis, more information gathering, and it's going to be part of a bigger discussion, then that would go into the committee of the whole, have that significant discussion back and forth, and a resolution come out of that, but not passed at that meeting. It would be passed at the regular council.
So for example, the thing I was talking about with the town, like
That would be a committee.
that would be a committee of the whole where the township residents could come in and voice their input. And then that would be brought forward to the next council meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that could happen that way, yeah.
Any discussion from anyone else?
I think there's probably a lot going on right now to have our normal scheduled meetings. Is it something that could be enacted at a future point when the workload was lightened a little bit, or say some of the items we pushed through and then our workload is a little lighter?
Yeah, there certainly could. it was just brought up because we need to act on procedural bylaws. So that's why I was bringing it up now. So we can, you know, so if there's any appetite to do it, then we can, but it can be reviewed anytime. Yes, absolutely.
I think it'd be certainly worth trying it. And you know, no one like change is never popular, but is there a real need to have a second meeting just for the sake of having a meeting? We could defer and give it some thought, come bring it back. You know, give people a chance. I've read it, read the agenda, read the procedure bylaw, but I want everyone to form their opinion and bring it back. Pros and cons. Again, why have two meetings if it's only for the sake of having a meeting?
Sure, please.
So on that note, I think that might be a good approach, Councillor Latimer.
Not Mortimer.
I know where I got that from.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I apologize. However, as we prepare the bylaw, and this will be part of the discussion anyway. I just wanted to see what kind of direction you felt. If you want to still have it under for consideration, we can certainly do that. And I could build or make some changes to the bylaw with that in mind. And then you can always retract or amend the bylaw as being presented, because it's not going to be a bylaw presented for passing. It's going to be draft changes for review.
Right.
And then we can, you know, formalize it there afterwards.
That makes sense to me. Any discussion from?
But I didn't have some input. So this was actually previously suggested, and I thought about it then, and I've thought about it again now. And I'm concerned for a number of reasons that I think it's best to stick with two meetings and not move to one. Other councils are, I believe that one meeting might leave us more pressured to accomplish, you know, things at those specific meetings, because it would then be another month potentially before, you know, we have those topics come back up, and those would be formal topics like bylaws and things. I also think there's so that would be one reason. If other municipalities are working on things and need our support, often it comes at the last minute. Unfortunately, it shouldn't, but it comes at the last minute. I think it just adds an added layer of pressure. You know, also, I think that when it comes to creating agendas and having public input on items, I feel that possibly having two meetings gives the public more opportunities, because it can potentially, we can act maybe potentially slower and still accomplish the same amount of work. And I'm losing my train of thought here. I just, I don't know, I have concerns. I guess what I would suggest is that we don't necessarily make those changes right now. I'd like to see us, you know, I would say at least for 12 months, and just kind of, you know, roll on and find these efficiencies and work on the agenda. And in that time, in a 12-month period, if we find that, you know, we're meeting and it's not necessary, then I think that's a good time. But just at this point, my feeling is that the status quo is reasonable in terms of the two meetings, and just, you know, I would be comfortable with just moving forward the way we are at this point and reviewing this potentially a year or so down the road. But I think there's a few drawbacks for us, and I guess that's my input there. I lost my train of thought in a couple of my points.
I'm getting the feeling that you're saying what two other people have said, that there should be a deferral of this decision for a period of time, give us a chance to kind of see how things are going. I'm really in favor of some meetings of the whole. And I know that's something that I'm sure would work well in the township is getting the public involved in some open discussion. Is it possible that we stay at the 2 meetings per month, but where there isn't a ton of necessary bylaw changes that we, from time to time, alternate a meeting with a meeting of the whole? Or is that impossible to do?
Procedurally, and you already have it established in this one, it would have to be amended, if the council chooses to go that route. Procedurally, you have to, pre-schedule your regular meetings, not your committee of the whole, but your regular meetings. Those are already established. There's nothing wrong with council, changing a meeting, but you need to give notification, which I'm gonna say is minimum a month. Notification that's gonna change or what have you, so you need to do that. But it's always that, you know, recognizing that has to happen. If council doesn't feel, in general, doesn't feel comfortable with it, I think it's probably a good idea to leave it with, at 2 meetings a month for now. And it can be reevaluated in the future and amend the bylaw as needed in the future. So it's certainly, but it was something since we were reviewing the bylaw that it was time to bring that up, because that was one of the big items that may change a few things. So
I have a question about meeting of the whole, or is that a one issue meeting usually, or is it not necessarily?
The whole is announced ahead of time that the discussion is going to be about this particular issue.
correct, yeah, and a lot of times not always, but the information is made available in advance.
Right.
For the discussion, but you can have more than one topic at that meeting, no issue with that.
But normally it's a one issue discussion. Not necessarily, okay.
So I've regained my thoughts here. So this is the way that I, as a counselor, I think, the way I imagine and would envision that things could work well, you know, with input from others, obviously, is, you know, I envision, the 2 regular meetings, I think can be useful. And for one of the reasons that, there, in many municipalities, you break out and you make these committees, right? As we have, and that's quite common. And a lot of times I feel like, because we're a small council and, you know, if we don't have jam-packed regular meetings, we can also avoid making so many committees and just dealing with matters in those meetings. That's just, it's one way I see it. And just as a council as a whole, instead of doing 3 or, you know, if you do 4, you might as well do the whole council. This is just my thought on some of the committee work. I think I've seen in the past where there would be committees and then councilors would be in the audience. And just, to me, it makes sense just to do it as one. That's just my feeling on some of the committee work. And further to that, you know, with the 2 regular meetings, if there's, I'm a fan of meetings of the whole, to discuss 1 or 2 issues. And it is quite possible that they could be done, you know, pre-meeting, maybe 6 o'clock or something. I don't know. We'd have to work it out to a regular meeting. And obviously then they would be time limited, but, or on other days, you know, just to try to keep things, so that we don't have many meetings.
Right.
But I definitely am in favor of the 2 meetings, and trying to utilize those meetings to, you know, do as much business as we need to do. I guess this is my thoughts. So.
All right, so last round, any final discussion?
I agree with John. That's our council Benson's point about we've got a lot on our plate right now. And like I just told you before, right, tonight is my 26th council related meeting, so I've
Yes.
already achieved my thing. I don't have to come back anymore.
Yes. I'm up there too.
Yeah, I know. So
All right, any last discussion, Mr. Latimer, Hanson?
Nope.
So I think we have a consensus that
Yeah.
we're gonna stay at the 2 meetings per month for now, and review the procedural bylaw with some changes to allow some different kinds of meetings as well. And I think, I see some good comments coming out that a lot of committees could be handled in council instead of as committees.
As far as our published meetings, we've already got only one meeting in August and one meeting in December.
That's correct.
So those are already, I mean, it's not like we're,
I don't,
Oh, is that right? I don't know.
yeah.
Yes, we do. We have,
Yeah, there's only one meeting in December and one meeting in August.
Oh,
yeah, so it's a lighter schedule. Christmas and summer is a lighter schedule. And then if the theory there at the time was, you know, if needed, you could call an additional special meeting.
All right,
I'll read the motion, Mr. Mayor.
please.
So the council received the report related to the procedural bylaw review, and for that council remain with 2 regular council meetings per month for the new procedural bylaw review.
All right, mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councilor Morton, seconded by Councilor Manson. We're just gonna get everyone's name mixed up today. All right, so we'll move on to the next, let's call it to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is carried. So we now move on to 8.3, roundtable mayor and councilors. And this is just an open discussion of things that have been going on. And if I may, I'm going to take the lead here. There is just something that has come to my attention, and that the chair of the planning board, Michelle LaHaye, her husband has recently passed away. And I also have learned that Debbie Adams will be memorialized in June. There will be a burial at the Calvin Cemetery, followed by something here in the Calvin Township
24th.
on the 24th. I would just like to suggest that in both cases, we have some gesture, and it, it's up to everyone here, but whether it be flowers or at least a card that is signed by council or a letter signed by council in both cases.
And Michelle's, are the,
I don't know. That's been just recent, but
I'd recommend that we send flowers to Debbie's and at least send a letter like Tapano sent us when Debbie passed away.
I actually, that was my recommendation exactly.
all right, and
Yeah.
yeah,
That's reasonable.
For both?
flowers for both and a letter from,
If the funeral's passed though, like maybe you should send her a fruit basket to her home kind of thing.
to Michelle. Yeah. Well, we'll have to find out. Does anyone know if, no?
I don't know any details. I just, I definitely support, something for Debbie's as well, just seeing as she was a member of our council and,
Absolutely.
I think that, something more could be done as well for Debbie that.
The Conservation Authority sent a card and we all signed it.
But definitely, I believe there should be a letter,
All
I
right,
support a letter from council
so
in both cases.
are you in agreement, Councilor Latimer?
Yes, definitely.
So can I instruct to,
Brielle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's a resolution for this, Mr. Mayor.
no. All right, and another thing I'd just like to bring up in the roundtable is Rial and I today attended an all-day meeting in North Bay about broadband internet for the area. And again, this is just another thing that eventually is going to have to be part of a roundtable with the public, an open meeting of the whole, I would think. But there was a lot of interesting information and of course, things that I wasn't even aware of at all, and that is that Vic Fideli, through the Liberals, mentioned that they have promised $4 billion in funding to make sure that fiber optic is available to every resident of Ontario by the year 2025.
They're conservatives.
He's conservative.
Yes.
Okay, you said liberals, sorry.
Oh, did I?
I
Okay.
just thought that's an important.
Yeah, that is important.
Regardless of party, I'm not in favor, I just, there's a
Absolutely.
difference, is my suggestion.
Well, and first we have the federal Liberals
Yes,
promoting
yeah, I
internet.
just wanted
Yeah,
to clarify
but
that.
Vic Fideli is
There's a
definitely
difference.
conservative. And so there is funding available. There is a move to develop broadband internet across Ontario. And they're talking primarily fiber access for the entire area. For those people here that have seen Rial's background, he has a lot of background in broadband internet. So I'll let him give us a little bit of a feel from what went on at the conference today.
Sure.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been out of that business for a couple of years, and it was a bit of a refresher for me, which was good. Just to catch up on some of the technology and some of that movement. Certainly, and I was part of that funding thing through my previous company and all that. The movement now, or in the last less than 5 years, has been push for fiber. Except the big issues are access in some of the tough communities, I'll say, and unfortunately Calvin happens to be one of those. Part of the funding mechanism, and this is the part that I don't, and Mayor and I had spoken about this a little bit, is that the issue with the funding is it's based on the private companies, that the ISPs, in other words, that have typically been the ones that were bidding for these through the grant processes for these funds. And if you don't have a low-hanging fruit or a population density, a lot of times you get left by the wayside. And here we are, and this is how I see Calvin's challenge. Mayor and I also spoke briefly about, throwing out conceptual ideas of what we can do for Calvin and how it can be done. And through my previous work as well, I've done this for another municipality, is possibly consider doing an application. That might need to be a regional application, so it's something that probably needs to be discussed at a bigger scale. But it'd be driven by as a municipal network or governed another way other than letting the third parties in control of your destiny as a municipality. Then there's a governance model around that. You can possibly get an ISP to operate it. They even spoke at length, actually, in different types of models that can be done with that. Not only an ISP, but other ways of doing it. Hiring local talent to operate it. That could be more efficient than actually trying to get a third party out to do it. A lot of things possible. The good news is that there's, although fiber seems to be the end game or the ideal end result of that everybody wants, we also have to recognize that running fiber to every house in a rural municipality has its own challenges. But there is the good news on that is that there's also other much more robust wireless technologies that are out there, and that allow for much more flexibility in terms of the topology issues and the foliage issues. And it's called the TV white space licensing. And as a matter of fact, in my former consulting days, I ended up 6 months. I ended up working with this gentleman, and he's recently set up a company called Six Harmonics, and they're developing equipment based on that. And so I had a discussion with him today, and we'll continue that discussion to see where it goes. But I think that part is good news for an option for Calvin, because right now municipalities like Calvin are really strapped in terms of what can happen. What's your alternative? Because one of the things that at breakfast, Mayor and I sat with a gentleman from the CRTC, and coincidentally, their mandate is to actually test go to ISPs and other entities to actually test their claim of 50 megabits per second down with 10 megabits per second up to see if it's really valid or not. And so are they really actually getting that, or is that just the ISP actually saying they can offer it? So when we look at those types of things, and I know this municipality doesn't have 50/10, so I know the service provider here with the equipment that's being utilized for this service cannot offer that. So I already know that very likely 99, maybe 100% of the municipality that's on fixed wireless technology, not necessarily Starlink, are not meeting the minimum standard that the federal government wants us to have.
That's deliberate.
That's deliberate. So there,
This particular 1.6 harmonics that we were talking about, as of course everyone here in Calvin knows, we have a Wi-Fi tower, and if you have line of sight to that Wi-Fi tower, you have internet. But as soon as you get off line of sight, you lose it. This system follows the landscape.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you have trees in the way. It doesn't matter if you have a hill in the way. So there are some new things on the horizon. I mean, what Brielle's talking about is possibly setting up another committee. But I mean, it's possible that you could go with a plan to bring fiber optics down Highway 630 and then go to this kind of system from that particular end hub. So there are some options that are open.
What about the provincial part going in on it and getting them to have it down there? Cause right now they got a payphone down there because there's no cell service.
Right. I mean, there's lots of things that need to be discussed and need to be worked on for sure. And it's a big project. It really is. It's but right now, the funding is there from the federal Liberals and the conservative provincial government. And the impetus is there. So now's the time to take advantage of that for sure.
So is Starlink and satellite internet out of the discussion?
I have Starlink at home, Councilor Latimer, and of course it works really well. I don't know how that plays into the plan to have internet to every resident of the province by 2025. But not everyone has Starlink, and they won't.
the big thing on that is the mandate from the governments is to have affordable, and I'm all the objectives are affordable, reliable, high-speed internet.
Okay, and the government is going to do this somehow. I'm
Yes, that's
dubious.
3 years from now, they're gonna dig fiber optic lines to every house in Calvin Township.
Not getting.
The government's going to do this, okay. How about, if the government wants to subsidize the install of my Starlink system, I'll be happy.
Well, I just want to throw one more point in there. I find it interesting. It's something there's municipal funds that are going to go towards these types of things. We have to be aware of options because they do it with the big pipe all the time. They do it with sewers. And, there's case studies that have been done through my experience with it's a similar thing where it was cheaper for the municipality just to give everyone a free septic system than install a sewer pipe in some cases.
Sure.
And depending on how this goes, I mean, we have to be open to these ideas, and it's cheaper for us to buy Starlink for every resident than put cable to every resident's house. Now, I don't know what grants, and I'm just saying, there's various intuitive ways that we need to be wise with taxpayer money.
And again, this is just a roundtable discussion, just to let everybody know that this is sort of the process that's going on, and it's something we have to look at further. We'll move on. Somebody else with roundtable, go ahead.
On the 25th, I attended an online training session for municipal responsibility for fire protection, which I thought had something to do with the fire department, but it actually has more to do with council. So I passed that information on, and they are willing to come to a council meeting or run a session for because we're all brand new, and it's what our responsibility to provide for the community. It's not what the fire department has to do, which I thought it was.
Interesting, absolutely. Comments?
Sounds good. Sounds interesting.
So I just
Sure.
pass that on to you.
Yes, I looked at it, and it is interesting. All right. Counselor Grant, anything for the roundtable?
I got nothing, that's rare.
Counselor. Counselor Manson, anything for the roundtable?
No.
Counselor Latimer?
I do not. Thank you.
All right.
Attendance at the two events. So. For those two past events that we had at the township hall,
Sure, bring it up, absolutely.
good attendance. We had like 55 people for the breakfast and 25 for the cleanup. Got a 14-ton dump trailer full of garbage to the dump.
It's impressive amount of garbage. It's a lot of garbage.
And probably half of it were recyclable tins.
Yes, we could have done that. And then we didn't have the input from somebody else that did it recently too, that had a truckload.
Yes, that's right. We had a resident who did it the week before or 2 weeks prior to that. I did write to the minister and tell him about Calvin's efforts, and I sent an email with a picture of what was done by the fire.
And I received several emails in addition to one we just mentioned from other people who said, I'm busy Saturday, but I'm gonna do it Thursday or Friday or hit around their house. So that was really nice.
Yeah, so the actual date
Today,
is today.
and the high school kids in Mattawa were doing that today, fired it up and down the bags.
So the government ministry asked that today was the day to deal with litter, or the weekend before, the weekend after, which was what we did,
Which just happened to concur with their program.
which is happened to concur. All right, so is that it for the roundtable? Anything else? No? All right, so then we will move on to do we pass a resolution for the roundtable?
No,
No. So then we'll move on to closed session. So you read that?
Yeah.
Pardon
Just
me?
have it at the very end.
very in.
Very,
My apologies.
do I read that or do you read?
Oh,
it? All right,
the council enter into a closed session at
7:54.
PM to discuss confidential human resource matters pursuant to section 239 2B, dealing with personnel matters and identifiable persons.
All right, move her to seconder, please. By Councilor Morton,
I'll second.
seconded. By Councilor Latimer. No discussion, I guess. All in favor? All right. Thank you, audience, for coming in today. We appreciate your attendance.